Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church on Zoom. My name is Jolene Ibanez, and I'm your worship associate today. I'm joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, and Beth Syverson, our director of music ministries, in welcoming you this morning. Karen McGoon Pearson is our director of religious education. We also would like to recognize the many volunteers that have helped us to put this service together today. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on Ahachiman and Tongva land. I would like to invite you to open the chat box to say hello this morning. A lot of you have already, that's good. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is simply a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. After the service, we will be placing everyone who remains into Zoom breakout rooms for 20 minutes for coffee and conversation. Everyone is welcome to join in, and it's a great way to get to know the people in the congregation. Our worship begins with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. And as we light it, we say our unison affirmation. If you have a chalice or a candle at home, we can light them together. Please join me now as we begin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery. Where do we come from? Mystery. What are we? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Welcome, everyone. All of us Zoomers. Welcome to 2022. Happy New Year. Thank you for coming back online for us today. Going back to online services, a small precaution, we're given the holiday spike in cases and also the availability of testing. But we also have a really fun service that we've been planning for you. It's called Question Box Sunday. We haven't done this service for a few years, but I thought it'd be a fun one to start the year out with. It's basically where you get to ask me any question. Be nice though, okay? But you get to ask me any question, pretty much anything you like, and I'm in the hot seat and I'll do my best to answer your questions. If you're also a visitor today, this is a really great opportunity for you to ask questions about our faith tradition, and trust me, I can guarantee that someone will have a similar question that maybe they just hadn't thought of asking that. And if you're somebody who's been around for a really long time, maybe there's a nagging question you've had in the back of your mind. You will have an opportunity, by the way, to contemplate a little bit and then write your question. I'll invite you at that time to write it in the chat. But I wanted to give you a heads up right now to kind of get you thinking. If there's a question like, I've always wanted to ask a minister this, that type of thing. So as we begin this special service, let us begin with these words, which is this. Welcome to this community of seekers, of questioners, of those open to the revelation that comes from experience with one another and the spirit of life. May we remember that while we have some answers, we don't have all the answers. And while we know some things, we don't know everything. I know it's hard to believe, but let us seek out questions and answers, for they are the spice of life. Welcome to this community full of questions and even some answers.
At the start of any given day, there is mystery available. There is a game waiting for an open heart to say yes. Here I am, I'll play. And if we're smart, we'll listen to the way, and all the misery that held us down, we'll let it fade. Let it be outshined by a simple spark of a life that's waiting to be made. It's waiting to be made. What will you make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make? At the start of any given day, there is history and poetry. There is a play, but you're not in the audience. You are the star. So get out there and say what you will make. What will you make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide just what you will make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? And what will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make?
So, all right. I don't know if you're aware, but this, we have these monthly themes in worship. And this particular theme of this month is living with intention. So I want to invite you to think about, what would you like to get out of the service? I want to get you in the habit. So each week this month, I'm going to ask you, what would you like to get out of the service? What's your intention, right? You can do this for all aspects of your life, and I encourage you to think about that. Yeah, so what is your intention? What would you like to get out? What do you need to face this week or even this year? What can I help you with? What questions do you have? And I can see we've already got some questions coming in there. So I'm going to invite you this morning to take a moment to consider a question you might have. And it can be theological, it can be personal, it can be about Unitarian Universalism, about justice issues, ethical things. Yeah, and then I invite you to write that in the chat. And they can come up as well. As we're going along. But I thought I would start off with answering a question that I never answered last year. And I think it was Nina who came up to me afterwards and she said, you never answered that question, which is, I told you a story about a time when I had met a new person at a meetup. And when they asked me what I did, I told them I was a minister, and he gave me this look, which was sort of disgusted, but he sort of said, "What do you do all day?" And he just sort of laughed at the idea that some people have no idea what ministers do, which is, I laughed because I didn't know either. What do ministers do all day? And so I thought I would answer that question this year. For some reason, I didn't answer it actually the last time we did this a few years ago. So what do ministers do all day? Well, we don't have a typical day, I will say. We more like have a rhythm to our week. So there's no such thing as a typical day, but a rhythm to the week. So what I would say is that about a third, this is a rough estimate, but I would say about a third of my time is spent in worship, on the worship service and putting it together. And it's not just writing the sermon, right? It's the entire service. So coming up with opening words and a prayer and reading and what am I going to say here? And then any of the research and all of that, about a third of my time goes to that. Another third of my time is usually spent in meetings. They might be pastoral care meetings, it might be a board meeting or a staff meeting or any type of meeting that's out there with various groups, all that sort of thing. And then another third of my time is probably spent on what I just call sort of administration, like it's answering emails and writing reports and giving feedback on various things and just stuff that comes up. It might be updating my computer, all that sort of stuff that you just don't really plan but comes up in your day. So some of you also don't know that, so I work 6 days a week. I have 1 day off a week. That's Monday. So that's why you'll see on my email, it says that I don't answer emails on Sunday or Monday, because after Sunday service, I'm usually crash. And then Monday's my day off, so I work 6 days a week. So that's pretty much kind of my rhythm of my week. So I don't know if you have any other questions within that, I'd be happy to answer them. So I love that we're getting some more questions coming in here, but I'd like you to think about, again, if you have any type of question, I would be happy to answer it. But while we do that, while you're thinking about it, why don't we go ahead and sing one more song?
Where is our holy church, where race and class unite, as equal persons in the search for beauty, truth, and right? Where is our holy
All right. Well, let's see here. We got some really great questions. I think I'm just going to start going through these here. Thank you all. For those of you, if you have any questions along the way, just continue to put them in chat. So Sarah Hunter asked, do all Unitarian Universalist churches have the same services? Yes and no. They may be very different from services like Catholic churches, but they have a lot of things in common, but they are fairly different. So for example, some people do a separate chalice lighting every week, but we do ours the same, which is the unison affirmation. Some churches, most churches do not actually sing a little affirmation after the offertory. That's somewhat unique to this church. But all in all of the different elements that we have are pretty much the same. They might come at different places. A lot of churches do sermons at the very end of the service. We put ours in the middle. But they have sermons, they have joys and sorrows, they have opening words, they have usually at least one reading, if not two, and a little meditation. Our church probably does more music than most churches. That's partly due to Beth's influence, and I love it. So I think music is so important. So yeah, so I think if you go, you'll find their order of service is different, but it also feel very familiar. So, Linda Clough asks, what do I love about Unitarian Universalism? Well, the first thing that popped in my head is just, I love the people. I think that Unitarian Universalists are endlessly fascinating, interesting people who are passionate about the world and creating a better world in whatever form that is, whether or not they're out there working for justice or they're trying to just simply be more of a compassionate person. I think that that's the biggest thing. I became a Unitarian Universalist in part because also it doesn't claim to have the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? Like it says, all of these different traditions, whether it's atheism to Christianity to Islam, all of these traditions have wisdom to them. And that was my personal belief too. And I think that there's wisdom in all of this, that we need to take all of it in. So I think those are the things that I love most about Unitarian Universalism. So let's see here. Jolyn says, in your studies, have you found why so many people need anger, retribution, rules, guilt, blame in their religion? What are the odds they can give those up? It's a really interesting thing. You're talking about some very specific forms of religion that do need a very sense of right and wrong. And not all religions obviously do that. And even within any religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, or Buddhism, there are lots of different people who have different feelings about it. But I would say that I have met people. I remember my best friend became a born-again Christian, and when I talked to her about it, she's someone who really needed a lot of structure in her life. She needed to know what is right, what is wrong. And that's where her security was. That's where she felt comfortable. And so I think that there's, to a certain extent, it's, we live with a lot of ambiguity in Unitarian Universalism. We don't have a huge amount of right and wrong. We have some of their boundaries around that, but that can be really uncomfortable for people. And in fact, I remember hearing a story from this one guy who said he taught at a fundamentalist college. It was a Christian fundamentalist college, and he himself was an atheist, but he didn't want to let anybody know, obviously. But sort of word gets around a little bit that he was sort of open, at any rate, to various things. And he said he would have students come to him every once in a while. A student would come to him and want to talk about this. And when this professor was asked, how many people actually left their religion, he said, I don't know of any that did, because it's really hard to give up that sense of structure and rules. And it's not just structures and rules, but it's your whole social structure, particularly for a lot of the much more conservative faith traditions. Your whole family believes this way. All of your friends are there. Church is a huge part of people's lives. And to leave all of that is far too terrifying for a lot of people. So that's a really hard thing. I think it's maybe getting a little bit easier right now. I think that the nun generation, those who say that they're part of no particular faith tradition, is getting larger, and it's becoming a little bit more accepted. And I think that people are opening up a little bit more, but I think it's going to take generations. So let's see, Matthew Patterson, what's the typical journey of an aspirant to ministry? Oh boy. There is a long journey to becoming a minister. So there are 3 phases of ministry. So the first is to become an aspirant, which is basically you apply, you have to get recommendations. I think it goes to the regional staff initially. They've changed some things around since I did it, but basically you're an aspirant. You can join the Ministers Association once you're an aspirant and been accepted. It's not hard to become an aspirant. Then you have to become a candidate. Once you become a candidate, usually you're in seminary, usually a 4-year seminary. You have to go through, there's a whole bunch of hoops you have to go through, including psychological testing. You have to do a chaplaincy in a hospital called CPE, which is actually really hard. It doesn't sound it, but trust me, it is. You have to write a ton of essays, and you have a reading list that's about a mile long that you have to read. And then once you're a candidate, you can then apply to go before the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee. And if you want to know about that, Phyllis Daniels in our congregation sat on that committee for years. It did an amazing job. And so you go before the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee after you've completed everything, and you give a homily and answer questions for about an hour. They can ask you anything that they feel is appropriate. And then you get the thumbs up or thumbs down. There's actually a scale of 1 to 5. So that's the sort of journey to ministry, as it were. And it's pretty complicated and everything, but there's more support these days, I think, than there used to be. So if you want to know more, just let me know. So Justin says, who was the first Unitarian Universalist? Okay, so this is interesting. So I was trying to think about this. So, Unitarianism and Universalism were 2 different faith traditions that merged in 1961. So if I had to say the first Unitarian would probably be this guy named Michael Servetus. He's the first one to coin the phrase Unitarianism, which was at the time actually kind of a little bit of a derogatory word because everybody was Trinitarian, right? So they saw God as 3. Michael Servetus said, no, God is 1, that is Unitarian. And because he looked at the Bible, he said, there's nothing in here that says that God is 3. And so he was also burned at the stake as a heretic, unfortunately. But he was probably, I guess I would call him the first out Unitarian, although that theology of God as 1 had been around for quite some time. But he's sort of the first one who coined that phrase. In terms of Universalist, on the Universalist side of things, I think I would go back to this early church father by the name of Origen. Origen was the first to actually sort of suggest that God saved everyone, that nobody went to hell. So he was probably the first. He was also he wasn't burned at the stake or anything like that, like Michael Servetus, but he was later by the church ousted by the church because I think he was originally a saint, and then they said, oh yeah, no, he can't say that. So they kind of ousted him. So there you go. And where do I see the congregation in 20 years? Boy, 20 years, huh? Thriving. I think that this church has one of the best foundations of churches I've known. It's an incredibly open church and loving church with really strong ties between people. And I think that that's what has a church last more than anything. I like to see us taking over the whole campus that we don't have. By then, maybe we wouldn't even we'd have renters, but maybe they're renting a room as opposed to taking over some of our offices on a permanent basis. And that we would be a really big force here in Orange County. yeah, that's kind of where I'd love to see it go in 20 years at any rate. Yeah, so let's see here. Tracy asks, when did joys and sorrows become part of the UU service? I have no idea. I believe it's been around for a really long time. Certainly the idea of prayer and lighting candles is certainly a Christian tradition that goes on for a really long time. But honestly, I don't know the question, the answer to that one. Sorry. Boy, see, if they answered this in yeah, in the MFC, maybe I wouldn't have passed. But when did joys and sorrows? I don't know. Phyllis, do you know? Or Tom, anybody know? So Justin says, update us on your pregnant puppy. Okay, some of you know this. She literally is in labor right now. No puppies as yet, but I expect them pretty much any time in the next 2 to 3 hours. So at any rate, let's see here. Let's see here. So Maureen, you know, wants to, she sent me a private message that I can skip this, but I think it's an important question. She says, sometimes the pandemic and associated issues get overwhelming. How can the church help us with the grief and fear? You know, Maureen, you're not alone in feeling like it's overwhelming. And I think that the biggest thing that I can say is reaching out to community and letting people know how you're feeling. Because I think what you're going to find is there's a lot of people also saying, oh God, me too, me too, me too. And so, yeah, that's what I encourage you to do is to let people know. We've also got pastoral care associates. If you just need someone to talk to, you know, just a good listening ear, you know, they're there, I'm here, but you know, our pastoral care associates, that's what they're trained to do, is just to love you into being and to help you with that. I'm also a big believer in one of the feelings of feeling overwhelmed can be a feeling of out of control. Like I can't control this. I don't know what to do. And one of the best things that you can do is find something to take control over, whether that is I'm going to send groceries to a friend of mine, or I'm going to call someone and check in on them. Whatever it is, it really helps people feel like, okay, at least I can do this. So reaching out for your own support, but then also giving support in some way, I think are the things that I would really encourage you do. Let's see, Nina says, is there a plan to have a new intern minister in 2022? Reverend Rika was such a great addition during her time here. I'd love to see a new intern. Me too, I would love it. So, you know, interns actually often kind of choose their church. So Rika came to me and asked if she could do her internship with me. I'd be happy to do that. I think it's something that the board has to approve because obviously we want to pay them, and do we have the money for that kind of thing, which is what we would do. But I've let, you know, Rika know, and I've let other people know, hey, we love interns here. This church has a huge history of internships and having people do their internships here, and have gone on to create amazing ministers. And people have come out of this congregation. And it's one of the reasons actually why I chose this congregation, was that I wanted to do internships. I wanted to help nurture new ministers. So yeah, I would love to see that happen. But it's sort of a matter of, you know, where people come from and where they're doing their thing. So let's see here. When will I have online office hours again? I can do them again online. I will try to, I'll think of a time when that works and put them out there. So let's see here. What are some of the most controversial issues currently being addressed by the UUA? Are there different parts of the country, this is Steve Moore here, are there different parts of the country or the world that hold widely different views on these issues? I assume you mean within the UUA. Yeah, so here's kind of, let's see here. What are some of the most controversial being issues addressed by the UUA? So I think that right now, anti-racism and anti-oppression is a big deal in our congregations, and the UUA is really trying to find ways, how can we work in doing anti-oppression work. So for example, there's the 8th principle that's been proposed, and I preached on that a while back. And that will come out, and that's been controversial for a lot of people, about whether or not, do we need an 8th principle? Do we need to do it differently? Do we like how it's worded? We all have great opinions about that. So that's one of the, I don't know if I'd call it a controversy, but that's definitely one of the big debates that's going on right now. I think there's been in the last couple of years, there's been a real challenge around how we've done anti-oppression work. And I've talked about this a little bit in our services, although not recently. Just around, I think that one of our biggest challenges as Unitarian Universalists, which is also in some ways our gift as well, is that we don't have a central theology, right? I mean, I tend to think we do, and I preach on love all the time because I think that is central to who we are. It's how we approach the world. It's a verb to us. It's the acts of justice that we do, but it's centered in that core of compassion and love, right? But we don't really have a principle around that. So what's happened, I think, is that some of the ways that we've handled some of the anti-oppression work have not been the healthiest. And that's created some people being very upset and even leaving Unitarian Universalism. It split some ministers, it split some churches, and that really makes me sad. And it's something that I think in part that maybe this is part of our growth, is growth can be painful, and that can come up. I think that we're getting through it and we're getting better, and maybe this is kind of what we needed to do to figure out who we are. But I feel like if we had a core theology that said, here's our common theology, which is love, that we could reach to that and say, is this the loving way to approach that? Is this the most loving way to do this? And what does that mean? And we haven't really had that. So that's the only thing that I struggle a little bit with in our denomination. Probably the only thing that might be kind of controversial, I think years ago when we talked about having, a white supremacy culture, people were really thrown by that. Like, what are you talking about? We don't have white supremacy in our congregations. We're, this very open and loving and everything. And what we're talking about was really systemic. This idea that we are a predominantly white denomination, and why is that when we're so open and loving and welcoming, and yet this is the way that we are. So, and that has to do with just basically look at our systems and understanding who we are within those systems and how they can, in many ways, put off people of color or somehow make people feel other. And so we're learning about how to be better around that. So, and again, like I said, how people approach it has been somewhat controversial. Some people feel like shaming was okay, but I don't. And so, most people, I would say, would agree that shaming isn't there, but what's shaming? What makes people feel that or not? And so that's been a real challenge. So, yeah, and I think that, around the country, one thing that's always interesting. So here on the West Coast, we tend to be fairly kind of, how do I want to put it? Kind of California, I guess, just kind of like we're open to lots of different ways of thinking. We don't hold as tightly to traditions as, say, on the East Coast. The East Coast, you can have churches that are actually still quite Christian, that are Unitarian Universalist churches, which you don't usually tend to see that in the Western part of the United States. So you can even go into a church and they might even still have a cross in it. That's not unheard of in a Unitarian Universalist church on the East Coast, because they've been around a lot longer, right? So they've been around for forever. That we came out of the Christian tradition. The Universalists were still far more Christian than the Unitarians were, even when we merged. And so some of those have held on to their more universalist understanding of Christianity than other churches, but they're still very open and affirming and everything like that. So I don't think there's any church that isn't, for example, a welcoming congregation, which is what we call our LGBTQ welcoming sort of certification, is that you go through a process of learning how to be welcoming. And so I mean, I think just I can't imagine any church that isn't welcoming that way. but yeah, but there are differing theologies. You can find things a little bit more conservative. When I was candidating at different churches, it means I was interviewing. I went to one church, and I remember it's this beautiful old church, absolutely gorgeous, and kind of really unique and interesting. And they had chairs; they didn't have pews. And I remember saying to them, "Oh, this is great! So you can, move the chairs around." And they said, "Oh yeah, we have dinners here, and that sort of thing." And I said, "Yeah, and even in worship, you could do worship in a semicircle or in the round." And they looked at me absolutely aghast, like, no. People have where they sit. They've sat there, for generations. These are their seats, right? Like that can be a very East Coast thing. This was a church out in New York. And so, yeah, so that's kind of some of the differences that can be East Coast versus West Coast. And not all of them are that way and on the East Coast, but they just tend to be a little bit more conservative in the way that they do things. They hold on to traditions a lot harder than we do out here. So let me see here. I know in the Midwest and in the South, and even here a little bit in Orange County, most of our churches tend to pop up in fairly progressive areas. They tend to pop up in college towns, that kind of thing. But in the South and in even the Midwest, and I even here to a certain extent in Orange County, our churches are really refuges. It's the word I'm looking for. They're sanctuaries for people of a more progressive theology. In an area where you're highly conservative, it can be such a delight to have a church that you can go to where you can be who you are and not have to worry at all. So it's another reason why I chose Orange County, because I was like, I want to preach to not necessarily the choir. So let's see here. Randy and Amy ask, how do most UUs find Unitarian Universalism? Through friends and family. Honestly, that's probably the number one way, is word of mouth. So if y'all go out there and tell your coworkers and your friends, that's how I became a Unitarian Universalist. Was my boss at the time told me about Unitarian Universalism. I'd never heard of it. And that's how I became a UU. So yeah, you want this congregation to go? Talk about your church. That's basically it. Because there's so many of us out there. I told you guys this before, but like when I found out about Unitarian Universalism, I was angry because I was like, this has been around for so long and I'm just hearing about it now in my 30s. Like, what the heck? So we tend to be non-proselytizing, which I totally get. I understand that. But, be proud of your church and what we do and everything, and talk about it to people. You'd be surprised. So there you go. So let's see here. Maureen says, what percentage of UUs have some type of theist mystic? And is that different in different parts of the country? Yes. So as I kind of said, like, you're going to find people of a little bit more theistic bent on the East Coast a little bit more. They did a survey a while back, and I'm trying to remember how many people identified as theistic. And I thought it was actually a pretty low percentage. It was something like 13%. But here's one of the funny things about that I've noticed is that people are far more open to theism, mysticism than actually say they are. Because when you say theist, many people think, oh, that means I have to be a Christian, or I have to believe in God, or any of those types of things. And what I have found is that a lot of Unitarian Universalists, far more than those would maybe check a box on, are actually open to those. They tend to be on the agnostic side of things. They just don't want to have that label quite there. So that's kind of what that's what I would say about that. So in my 8+ years here from Sarah Jones so far, what has been your most memorable, significant event or moment here? Huh. I have to think about that one. Honestly, I think the day that you all voted me in was probably one of the most significant, memorable moments. That's what immediately leaped to mind. Was I remember standing up there with Catherine Martin and her, basically saying, we voted you in. And I just was like, this rush of like, oh my God, it's happening. It's here. So I love that. I'm just trying to think, of other things. I'm just so proud of the fact that we're building a new sanctuary, that we got through everything. I've just been so impressed with everyone. It's funny. I remember, I think Mary Lindholm said this to me. She said she was speaking with Ed, who was the interim, and he said, when he came to the church, he felt like it was a really, what's the word I want to use? He said there wasn't any energy. Nobody was really doing anything. And I think about it now, and I just think about how many people are doing so much. And I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that how active everyone is, how dedicated everyone is, passionate about this church, and it's thriving. I mean, we're in COVID and it's thriving. I keep hearing these articles about churches whose attendance is way down and everything, and it's like, not for us. Our attendance is up, which is just amazing. It's because everybody just pitches in and is doing it. It's just really amazing to me. So I guess I'll have to think if there's any specific moment that I can think about. Yeah, but I guess those are some things I'm really proud of. So if someone, Craig, Linda, I love it. If someone's interested in volunteering at OCUC, who should they contact? Asking for a friend. All right, reach out at hello@ocuuc.org. That's an email that will go to our membership committee people who will help you get connected in whatever way that you want. I really think that, like being an usher is like a really simple job, and like volunteering to do something like that, it's a great way to get to know people. I remember Judith Stamper, one of our long-term members, she told me that like her first month there, they asked her to be an usher and she didn't know anybody. And she said, but I got to know everybody. People would ask me questions as an usher and I had to find out the answers, or people, I'd start to see everybody's face every Sunday, and then I got to know who all of them were and everything. And I love that. I think that's really kind of cool. So it can be really hard to like jump in, but believe me, there's always stuff to be doing here. There's something we always need. If the person is technical minded or wants to learn technical stuff, we have a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, that they can get involved with, which is actually a lot of fun to see how it all happens behind the curtain, as it were. So yeah, so that's how I think they can definitely just reach out, and Nina or Linda will get in touch with you, and I can always help you get connected. You can reach out to me too, by the way. So hope that answers. Boy, I got through all the questions. This is kind of amazing, you guys. I think I got through all of the questions. All right. And you know what? We're right on time. So here we go. All right. So thank you all for your wonderful questions. I hope this was interesting to you. It's always fun for me. I'll have to ask about that joys and sorrows and where it started. I'll get back to you. So at any rate, so let's sing. And Matthew, I'll get back to you on that.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my trial and heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue
Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home.
I give thanks to the waves upholding me. Hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my Savior's song. I was born upon the fathoms. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are partnering with Stand Up for Kids. You know, in 2020, they housed 130 kids and provided 3,525 meals. And 90% of the kids that they worked with graduated high school or went on to full-time employment or college. This group is impressive. So give generously. There are multiple ways in which you can support this church and this organization. You can mail in a check. You can go through our website. You can use an app called Vanco Mobile, or you can send a check. The choice is yours. All the information is on our website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
How many times have you heard someone say, if I had his money, I could do things my way. But little they know that it's so hard to find one rich man in 10 with a satisfied mind. Once I was waiting in fortune and fame, everything that I dreamed for to get a start in life's game. Then suddenly it happened, I lost every dime, but I'm richer by far with a satisfied mind. Money can't buy back your youth when you're old, or a friend when you're lonely, or a love that's grown cold. The wealthiest person is a pauper at times compared to the man with a satisfied mind. When my life's ended, But there's one thing for certain, when it comes my time, I'll leave this old world with a satisfied mind. How many times have you heard someone say,
Please join in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share.
We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
This is fun to spend this time with you all this morning. But now's that time when we all get to honor the important events and people in our lives. And you're invited, one and all, whether you're a member, a friend, or visitor, to participate in our weekly ritual of joys and sorrows. So maybe you came here today holding something close to your heart from the last days, weeks, or even hours, something that maybe it struck you at your core. If you'd like to honor such a profound joy or sorrow, we invite you to do so. Now you can do this by lighting a candle at home. It's a wonderful way to honor what you hold in your heart. I'm going to light one for all of us here in a moment. But if you'd like to share your joy or sorrow with the congregation, you can write it in the chat. So I invite us to take a few moments in silent contemplation, and then I'll begin reading the joys and sorrows out loud. And please forgive me if I miss a joy or sorrow. You can help me not miss any by waiting to type comments to an express joy or sorrow until we're finished. As you listen to these joys and sorrows, I also invite you to silently offer healing or celebration as you feel called and according to your own beliefs. So I'm going to start with a sorrow from Sarah Hunter. She sent to me, she said, for Rob, her husband, her brother-in-law, Sarah's brother-in-law, he passed away just before Christmas. Many family members were able to say goodbye to him, and she says that they came together to celebrate his life, and he will be sorely missed by family and friends. So our heart is with you, Sarah, in your sorrow for your brother-in-law. And Dinny and Bob, as you say, asked that we light a candle of concern for Scott and Margaret Armstrong. These are former members of the congregation who are still beloved by many of us. And they told us in an email that their kids both have been diagnosed with COVID. Oh, we hold them in our hearts and hope that they were all vaccinated and doing okay. And Sharon Ball sent me one. She said, I'm so sad that our world has lost an iconic figure of Betty White this week. She was an avid PETA member, and I like to think there are many critters on the Rainbow Bridge to welcome her home. Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it when I heard that she passed away. I thought she'd live forever. And Angie sent me a note. She says, my 17-year-old kitty passed away this week, and she's no longer suffering. However, Angie's really gonna miss her. Yeah, our fur babies, it means so much to us. And Karen Kennedy offers up a joy that everyone has been to be on Zoom today. It's great to see you all, right? Karen all the way up in Sonoma. It's good to see you too. It's kind of neat, isn't it? We get to see everybody all at once. I have to admit, that's one of the really nice things about being on Zoom. We get to see everybody. And Jolynn says that she's thankful to have had her family with her for the holidays this year. Things were changed a bit, but we were still there. So yeah. And Peggy says to please light a candle to uphold her daughter's spirit as she struggles with her life. Oh, Peggy, we definitely hold her. Marilyn says a candle of hope for my brother-in-law, Phil Simeon, who is recovering from brain surgery. Wow. And slowly gaining strength and endurance through intensive rehab. Oh, yeah, we definitely hope he gets better soon. Linda Clough sent me a message that she has a concern about a grandson who's in a hospital in Texas and needs to start recovery from mental and drug and alcohol addiction. She says she hopes that he has hit his bottom. That's the only way to get back up. Corey Brown says it was a joy to see family and friends during the holidays. He says, kudos to our public health professionals who remain on duty. Amen. God bless them. Let's see here. Donald Martin said he talked to his brother yesterday. He's operating at about 20%, but seems to be in good spirits. Well, I hope he feels better and get up to 100% soon, Don. Oh, and Judy offers that we also remember Desmond Tutu, what a man of peace and love in his heart. Yes, let's remember Desmond Tutu. And Matthew Patterson asks that we light a candle for family. Several of Alex's family members have tested positive with COVID, including a couple of children. And he says that he and Alex, his husband, are still healthy. Yay. Oh, I'm sorry, though, about your family. It's going around, and all we pray is that it's mild, right? It's just mild. Valerie Cosson says she'd like a candle of healing for her nephew, Jake. Absolutely. And Sarah Jones, our administrator, she says a huge candle of joy because her daughter, the sweet Hannah, finally came home from Canada last night. She was very much missed. Let's see, Marilyn, she says a candle of joy to be able to have a special breakfast and time together with both her daughters. This was the first in over 20 years that we could be together, laugh, talk, and listen to one another. Oh, Marilyn, that is a wonderful thing. May that continue to be the case through 2022. And Barbara Hero says keeping Beth and her family. Beth is our music director of music ministries who's on sabbatical. She said keeping Beth and her family in our thoughts during her sabbatical. Absolutely. We miss her and hope all is going well. All right. Well, I am going to light this candle here for all those that were spoken and silent. Anything that was held in our hearts. Let us hold in love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, whether they've been spoken or silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. We are with you. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. I chose this one this morning because it has a little humor and I didn't know where else to put this prayer because I really liked it. So I hope you get a little chuckle out of this prayer. Dear God, so far I've done all right. I haven't gossiped, haven't lost my temper, haven't been greedy, grumpy, nasty, selfish, or overindulgent. I'm really glad about that. But in a few minutes, God, I'm going to get out of bed. And from then on, I'm going to need a lot more help. May the rest of your day and your week be filled with all the support you need to make it through. Amen and blessed be.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're a congregation made up of people who all believe differently. And yet when we gather together, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to write in the chat your name and where you are from so we can welcome you. Oh, is anyone typing? If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for our youth and children, please contact us at hello.ocuuc.org and we will help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we will help you get connected. After the benediction, we will have a short period where everyone can wave and say hello. After that, you can choose to be put into Zoom breakout groups for 20 minutes or so. We invite you to check in and get to know people in your group and welcome any visitors.
Oh, so now we've got, let's see here. Oh, wait, it says I'm muted. No, I'm not muted. Let's see here. All right, so announcements. We got some things coming up here. A couple of things. I'm going to be joining the AHA, or Atheist Humanist Agnostics group today at 12:15. You're welcome to join. I think the Zoom link is on our website, or you can contact Randy Kokel, and he can get it out to you if you'd like to join us. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to talk about, but we'll have some fun with that. And then I also want to let you guys know about the Pacific Western Regional Assembly that's coming up. It's Friday through Sunday, February 4th through the 6th. It's actually taking place in San Diego, if you wanted to go down there, but it's also going to be online. Yay. So I want to encourage you to sign up, because you want to know about other Unitarian Universalists around the country and what they're doing and some really cool things that are happening. I think the theme is something like rejoice, renew, reconnect, I think is the theme. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff about how to deal with a lot of the grief that's going around and the challenges that we're facing. But if you're like, ooh, I just don't know if I have, I think it's $125 or $150 to register online. If you don't have that, just contact me and I've got a discretionary fund and I can get you signed up for that. So it is Friday through Sunday. And I know some of you work on Friday, but if you can't make it for the Friday, don't worry about it. It's a really wonderful way to get to know more about our faith tradition here in the Western region at any rate. So there you go. So let us join now in singing our benediction. Beth is here virtual with us.
Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me.
Well, I hope today's service satisfied some of your maybe burning questions, and may you have a satisfied mind throughout your life. This service is over. Let our service continue.